Welcome to Sikorski's Think Abouts, and I'm your host, Laura Sikorski. My goal is for guests and I to share our expertise and think abouts that will help you provide outstanding services and experiences to your customer. Today, our guest is Barb Grothe, and we're doing our show via Skype. And she is out of Indianapolis, Indiana. So welcome, Barb.
Hi, Laura. Thank you.
We have been friends and colleagues, business colleagues, since 1988 when we met at the Society of Communication Technology Consultants. And Barb specializes in working through the confusion of technology with her customers. She's Executive Vice President of the Society of Communications and Technology Consultants, and she is also co-author of the Handbook of Telecommunication and has written articles that appeared in Network World, Investors Business Daily, Entrepreneurial Woman, and Computer Consultant magazines. Her clients vary across the country, from Bank of America to GE Capital to U.S. West Cellular to the IRS. I hope you were very kind to them, Barb. Department of Defense, the Indianapolis International, and I certainly can go on and on. We are very excited because we are both consulting and supporting interactive intelligence with a contact center technology implementation for their contact center makeover winner, BidPal. Now, BidPal provides fundraising technology software to assist philanthropic organizations to increase donor management, engagement, and fundraising success. So with that, Barb, we are so excited to have you here, primarily because what we are going to talk about today is how to make it easy for customers to reach you. And that it can be either through technology, through emails, through phone, etc. So, Barb, I really would like you to start with advising how our listeners, they get complaints from the customers about being so frustrated. We all hate that press 1, press 2, and then by the time we get there, we're so doggone frustrated, and we don't even get a live agent. We're still waiting in queue. So let's talk about, what do you think is the right way to begin?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me today, Laura. This is going to be fun, and to share with you our experiences. And as you mentioned, we've been doing this 29 years, helping call centers, enterprise, and so forth through all this confusion. But to answer your question, self-service, you have to think like the customer. You have to put yourself in the customer's shoes. You have to realize, what channels do they want? Do they just want to call into me? Do they want to instant message me? Do they want to chat with me? So instead of forcing the client into a certain mode and make them chat with you, you really have to think like the customer and ask them, how do you want to reach us? What's the best way to do that?
And I love what
some of the IVRs.
Whoops, let me just interrupt for a second. I just love the fact that you're talking about thinking like a customer, because for me, that is one of the most important things that companies forget. They design things and then they forget they really have to have live people use it. So with that, I'm sorry.
That's okay. No, that's fine. So that's the main thing, is to think like a customer, and to do that, you have to have focus groups. So those focus groups need to come into that call center, and you really need to listen to the call center, to your customers, so that they know exactly what mode would be best. We've seen some IVRs that are just stuck in the 80s, and those are the call centers that really need to change.
Now, when you say stuck in the 80s, what do you mean? Is it, because you and I both design IVRs in a 4x4 system, where we have 4 prompts initially, and then when a customer presses one, they get 4 more, and then they go to a live agent or in queue. What happened in the 80s? Did they get too technical or too gross or too whatever?
Back in the 80s, we saw clients that would have 9, 10, 11 choices in their IVRs. And then you would press one, and then you would go somewhere else completely different from where you needed to be. So back in the 80s, they didn't really have it designed properly. IVRs were new back then, and it was horrific.
Wow. Now, I want to talk a little bit about focus groups. I've done one focus group recently, and I found that the customers were very excited about being part of the team that was going to make it better for all the customers. And did you find that when you were conducting focus groups as well?
Absolutely. The excitement in the air when they were explaining different things and the customer was asking them questions, you could see how excited they were that they were being heard.
Right, right. No, and I think that's the whole point of the customer is they want to be heard. They want you to understand what their issues may be with your company, yet be part of the ability to change it or to help you design something for the future. Now,
Right.
what are, some of the things that we've talked about in the past is you really have to know your customers. And what do you mean by knowing your customers?
Knowing your customers, we really have to, when we live in the call center world, we need to know exactly who's calling us. And that means what is their demographics? Where are they calling in geographically? What is the age of our customer? Are they millennials? Are they 60 plus years old?
Be kind.
Hey, I'm right there with you. So what is their education level? These are all of the things that you have to, before you can think like a customer, you have to know who your customer is in the first place. And these are the things that what is the average size of their family of when they call into your call center? If the call centers had this data available to them, then they can really think like a customer because they actually know who their customers are. So call centers need to take that extra step.
Well, now, and we promise to all of our viewers, we're not going to get too technical, but the technology out there to help the customers is really phenomenal. So let's go from your perspective. What do you see as some of the new fascinating technologies?
Some of the things that we've seen out there, and that some of them I actually absolutely love, is virtual hold. That's if you call like a Southwest Airlines or a call center and they ask you, the average hold time is 25 minutes. Would you like to remain on hold or would you like to have a callback? Callbacks and virtual holds are the best ones, I think, out there going right now. If you want to be called back, you don't lose your place in line. You enter your number that you want to be called back on, and then an agent will call you back within 20 minutes or whatever time that average hold time is. So those are good technologies that call centers need to use and offer to their customers. Customers like to get in and get out. They want to get their question answered quickly. So those are a couple of them. The other ones are multi-channel. The call center needs to offer, as we talked earlier, they need to offer instant messaging, chat, voice, however the customer wants to interact with you. They need to think about multi-channel. So those are new technologies now that call centers really can engage with.
Mm-hmm. And I think I personally like the chat option. I think that's really great because, number one, you know that the agent is multitasking, but you yourself can be multitasking, and you still get the end result.
Exactly.
And I think today what we're finding, and I know you agree with this, is that many people want that self-service option. They want to do the pressing and get their bank balances and so forth. But most importantly, they want to talk to a live agent. And the live agent is not very long of a call. It's usually like 30 seconds or a minute. But meanwhile, they've gone through a horrific task of pressing all these buttons. And then when they finally get to a live agent, they probably forgot their question or the reason they were so annoyed. What else have you seen out there in terms of let's talk about the phone itself?
Right. We have seen and we had a deployment. It wasn't a true call center deployment, but they removed all the desk phones from the desk and went with soft phones. And they answered with their headset and, they answered the call with their mouse and then they had all of their information there on their screen. So we're seeing a lot of that. We're also seeing where companies are removing their IVRs and going back to live answer, like we did before we even had the technology. So that's being seen out there across certain industries.
And I think I'm really happy about that because I think customer service, customer care, whether it's has to be through a human kind of experience. What about, do you think about, I have this percentage, and I'm not sure how to go about it. It says 83% of businesses have a backup plan in place, but they never test it. Is that really
Right.
true?
Well, I have read those same statistics, Laura, and my clients go, I think it's very close to being true because they go to the steps to put in backup systems and to have all of that, but then it's never tested. So I think that percentage is true. Call centers need to test their backup plan at least once a month.
And that is really, and to all of you out there for backup, if you have spent the money to have an alternate site or to have your calls go to either a service bureau or one of the other kind of companies out there, test it because you never know when an emergency is going to happen and you don't want to be caught short.
Mm-hmm. It's similar to our offices. We have a backup generator for our offices here, and the backup generator automatically comes on every Monday morning at 6 a.m. and it tests itself for 10 minutes, and it does it once a week. So we need to think in terms of that for our backup systems.
So let's talk about what's hot. We've through the years we've seen so many different technologies happening around the globe, and let's talk about what do you think is hot, and then I'll chime in and see if I disagree or agree.
Okay. Well, first of all, call centers have to have better automation. We are moving at a light speed right now in the call center industry. There are so many choices. The business processes can be improved, productivity can be improved. So there's a lot of automation that call centers can deploy. The other big one is analytics. Analytics are good so that you know what wording is used, that you can help your agents get with their customers. So that's a big one. Workforce optimization. That's another big technology that's hot right now, that we can actually schedule our people better and have it all that scheduling done automated. And one of the biggest ones is big data. And that's what I started with today, is knowing who your customer is. Big data will tell you, call centers can deploy this from a third party, or they can work on it themselves if they're large enough. But they'll be able to give you all of that data, where the age of your customer, the demographics, where they're calling geographically. So big data is one of the big hot items right now in call centers.
Well, and it's true. Most companies, they have all of these systems in place to just get all this information about their customers. And I think what I find is they have so much information, they're so overloaded, they don't know what to do with it, so therefore they don't do anything. And that's very sad in our world today. That
is sad, and I'm seeing the same thing too in with my clients.
And back to your point about analytics, my blog this week is about speech analytics and how what you said about understanding through the voice of your customer physically on the phone live how they're feeling. It's able to determine if a supervisor needs to come in and start listening. If it was one of the buzzwords that was saying on that call, maybe it could have been, I want to cancel my account, or I hate dealing with your company, whatever that is. And the speech analytics in a live environment enables you as the consumer and the customer, I think, to get better services. Mm-hmm. One of the things I think that you and I talked before camera was that applications that we have today really are a great return on investment, because there's so much technology out there. Just Salesforce.com as an example. I mean, it enables you, the employer, to provide your agents, your employees, with such an amount of information about the customer. So
Right.
I can't believe that we are just almost out of time. And before we get to the think abouts that we normally do, I really would just like to ask you a Twitter question that came in from Mike. And he was very curious to find out what was your worst IVR experience.
Ooh. Uh, One that comes to mind is it was a large technology company. I was assisting a client with help with their, phone bill issues. And I called into this technology company and had to get through the maze of IVR. I had to tell them what state I was calling from. I had to enter the phone number where I was calling from. I had to enter, the 3-digit code on the phone bill. I had to do all of this. And after I got through the IVR, which was very frustrating, probably took me a minute and a half to get through it all, maybe 2 minutes, I hear the call center in this region is now closed.
Oh my gosh.
It was awful. So that's probably my worst.
The worst, and I hope you went and called them the next day and said, I think you need a consultant.
I did. I didn't say they need a consultant, but I did call them in as a consumer to tell them this was just not right.
Right.
And since then, they have changed it.
Well, that's good.
Yes.
That's good. But our show is about thinkabouts, and I'd like you, Barb, for based on what we've talked about for this 20-minute show, what should our audience think about for their next steps?
I would say the first thing is to change with the times. The call center really needs to explore what other call centers out there that are working really well. They need to explore those and find out what those are. So change with the times, I would say, is the first one. The second one would be to think like the customer, like we've already chatted about. Have those focus groups. It will be so well worth the money to have your customers come in and tell you what's right and what's wrong with the call center. So those two, and thirdly, make it easy for them to get in and get out. People don't want to be a maze of IVR, and they don't want to enter their account number only to hear the agent say, what is your account number? And here we are, 2015, we are still getting this when the technology is there to marry those together. So call centers that have that, they need to fix that. And then make them want to tell others of the experience they had with your call center. If you have a great experience, you're going to tell several people. So I'd say those are my think-abouts for today.
Okay, well, that's great. I also think, we're so used to technology, and we really need to remember the human side of the call center, of the customer experience. So, Barb, with that, I want to thank you so much for being my guest today, and I appreciated your taking the time from Indianapolis, and I will be seeing you in about a month and a half. And June 7th, so that would be great. So I'd just like to remind everyone, Barb's information. She is the CEO of Telecom Resources. Her email address is bgrothe, that's B as in boy, GROTHE, at tel-res.com. Her website is www.tel-res.com, and her office number is 317-502-5599. And certainly to reach me, if you'd like to be a guest on the show, or direct message me on Twitter, that is at Laura Sikorski. And my cell, should you need to get in touch, is 631-624-6650. And as always, we would like to thank the Daily Blue and Blue Chip Marketing for hosting and being our cameraman, Mike, for this show, and we greatly appreciated all that they have done for us so far. And they can be reached at Twitter at the Daily Blue, Blue is BLU, or at Blue Chip MRKTNG. Their office number is 631-761-9223. And next week, our guest will be Robert Shapiro. He is president of the Center for Client Retention and our topic is going to be customer retention. So with that, folks, I want to thank you so much for clicking in today, and have a perfect rest of the day.